Thank you for tuning into the Just Believe Show. I am honored to introduce you Nicholas Murray, who is one of the founders of Mind Muscle Pro. He's a trainer. He realized that when it comes to working out, the benefits, how it helped him with his mental health, which, he didn't realize he was having trauma and he didn't know how to really, really articulate what he was going through. His story is phenomenal. And he used this working out thing to pretty much save his life. And not only that, he devoted to diving into becoming a personal trainer, teaching people not only just about like working out and importance of that, but also with the Mind Muscle Pro, what he does on his end. He has a podcast where he interviews people and show alternative ways of healing, as far as like music therapy, as far as like doing yoga, which I love as well. And just to see him grow, and I've been knowing him for years, and watching his growth, it's phenomenal. And likewise, what he said for me. But I enjoyed this episode. It was very emotional moments, but in the emotion was not only pain, but you can see it turn into joy, right? And I learned a lot from it. We shared a lot, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode. So here we go.
In that show, I created a podcast. Well, really, we haven't even gone to the podcast thing yet. We do short videos and we interview people with regards to mental health. My journey started with really at a young age. I was 5 or 6 when my dad left, and I developed excessive worry about things, and it became kind of a lifelong struggle with anxiety. And I really didn't know that those two things were linked. I didn't know that trauma as a child and having a parent leave and not come back created all this anxiety in my life. But I was excessively worried about things that really are irrational for most children. And as I got older, it kind of started to absorb me. So it was a struggle. And I think when I got into my teenage years, I mean, being a teenager is tough for everybody. It really is. It's not an easy time for your life. You're figuring out who you are. Add excessive worry and anxiety to that, along with depression, and it dominated my life for a very long time. And I was very inside myself for a very long time. So what ended up happening was, the older I got, and as I went along in my teenage years, I got sick. I got depressed to the point where I wasn't able to function properly. And it dominated my life. And, I really had no answers. And a lot of that stuff you keep to yourself. People notice you're depressed as a teenager, and they're like, he's a teenager, he's going through what every teenager does, and at that point I found, the first time in my life, I found relief for that with drugs. I mean, it was this amazing ability to not think about everything or overanalyze. And it was my therapy. It was a toxic therapy. But it did give me relief from anxiety. It did give me relief from depression. It got me away from myself. Unfortunately, what also happens when you find something that gives you this happiness is, I did it to excess, and it destroyed me. It dominated my life to the point where, I quit taking care of myself. All I wanted to do was feel that relief and chase that high. And as a young adult at about 18, I got to the point where I quit eating and kind of lost touch with reality. And I was hospitalized because I was a danger to myself. I was, not eating, not sleeping, and doing drugs to excess. You have a lot of confusion in your brain. And, at that point, I was admitted to a hospital, and, I had drugs taken away from me before. I got court ordered. I had some legal trouble when I was a teenager. I got court ordered to rehab. And, I got locked up a few times because I violated probation. But this time was different because I had pushed things to such limits that I had hurt myself. I was very unhealthy, and mentally I was in a bad state. So after I was hospitalized, months of not being able to do drugs, all that depression and things that I was numbing and self-medicating came back, with a vengeance, and just an enormous amount. So when I got out of the hospital, the depression was to a point where I wasn't able to function again like when I was younger, but it was worse because I was an adult. It wasn't like, I had parents, able to take care of me the same way, or, I didn't have the comfort and safety of, living with people that cared about me. I'd burned a lot of bridges. And so I've thought about this a lot when I've watched podcasts, yours as well, about talking about my suicide attempts. And, I've thought about how, is it important to talk about details? Is it important for that stuff? And for me, it's not. The fact of the matter is, I tried to end my life and ended up in a hospital, and got out of that hospital, and I tried to end my life again. And it became this, it became my life. It became who I was. I'm a depressed person that's not able to function and that wants to die. And my depression progressed during those times, I think, in the midst of being on a lot of medications and being hospitalized, and a lot of confusion. I caught this glimpse of how I affected other people's lives. And I already had hate for myself. I didn't want to live. I didn't like who I was. And I didn't have I put no value on my life. But during these times, I caught this glimpse of what I was doing to other people and how selfish I'd become, with my mental illness. I mean, it created this victim mentality where I really couldn't think about anybody else. It was just, woe is me, and no one knows what it's like to be me. And that's true, but no one knows what it's like to be anybody. Every one of us have, incredible demons that no one else in the world can fathom. But I caught a glimpse of what I was doing to other people, and I started to see myself not only have no value on myself, but also thinking that I had no value in other people's lives. So in that, that's when things got really dark, when it became like you don't only hate yourself, but you're not causing anything good in the people you love's lives. You're bringing them stress. You're bringing them, enormous amounts of extra work that most people don't have to do. And, you know, in terms of being a parent is hard, but when you have a kid that's in and out of hospitals and you're trying to talk to doctors all the time and having to visit him while he's, you know, struggling, and you know, it's
Yeah, it's
so
very, very challenging.
things got terrible because it was, you know, I caught this glimpse of not only myself as somebody that I didn't value, but also that I was just a fucking problem, not just for myself, but for everybody. And things continued to be dark. And, you know, I think at some point, you know, when you try to end your life, and the shit is fucking is daunting as a young person. I mean, I know people that I've met in hospitals and people that I'm friends with that, you know, I remember trying to cut my wrists, and God, that shit, it was awful. I'm like, this is fucking awful.
Like, what am I doing?
And yeah, I mean, the pain also, it's like, this is crazy. And, you know, over and over, I'm trying these different things. I'm taking bottles of pills, and, you know, you end up in a hospital, and you're, you know, it's, I think at some point during all this, I got to the point where I'm like, I can't even kill myself. So I'm just going to go numb to this shit. So then I went through more years of self-medicating. You know, I quit using drugs because it was a problem. And I became this kind of numb character that drank a lot, but still existed. And I did that because I was sick of just being a burden. I think I wasn't happy. I was depressed. So years and years of that, not being happy, but existing, turned into, I honestly, the first time I went to a gym, it had nothing to do with mental health. It had to do with, I was in college and I was drinking a lot and I was getting fat. You know, I'm like, God, you look like garbage.
Was it from drinking beer?
Yeah,
Yeah,
lots
the
of beer,
yeast.
lots
Yeah,
of beer. Yeah, it'll do it, man.
it'll do it to you.
It'll. Um, I make diet plans for people all the time, and they're like, "How much beer can I still drink?" And I'm like,
I don't think you should.
It's a problem." But anyway, this amazing thing started to happen when I started going consistently. And again, it was really just for, you know, to look better. And what started to happen is I started to feel good. And it was internal. It wasn't, you know, oh, I'm looking a little bigger. It was this feeling of euphoria and this feeling that I hadn't had. And God, I couldn't even remember the last time I really felt happy. So what that translated into was years of working out and progressing mentally and physically. I always tell people that's been a bonus of working out, that I look a little better physically. But the real thing came from this, you know, internal, God, people get pissed off at me because I'm constantly like, gotta go to the gym, bro. You gotta go to the gym. I tell my friends probably go crazy, but it's done so much for me personally that I'm just all about getting people involved with it. So that's kind of what led me to this project with Mind Muscle Pro. And you know, my working out saved my life. I tell people that a lot, and I don't think people know the gravity of, I don't think people realize how that's not just something I say. That's something that is absolutely true. I went to a gym feeling like there were no answers. And after being put on medications and years of just feeling like I was too broken to fix. And that's what Mind Muscle Pro is about. Mind Muscle Pro is about, you know, trying to reach people that have felt that way, that feel like there aren't solutions left. Like, you know, I'm done. Nothing helps me. They put me on antidepressants. I'm still depressed. And you know, if there's one thing that and this is my experience personally, I can't talk about the mental health field as a whole. I think there's not enough education about it.
We're still learning
I mean,
about it.
you touch on it all the time, that there's a lot of misinformation, and people don't really know what's going on. It should be something that's talked about, especially among men. And that's why it's great, because we're not supposed to talk about any of this at all. We're supposed to just be like, we're good.
Yeah. I'm crying on the inside, but I'm good, man.
Exactly. Yeah. And it builds. But if there's anything that I could change about the mental health field, in my experience, I would say, if somebody, instead of just continually dumping medication into me, just said, you know what, let's go for a walk. Let's lift some weights. Let's play some music and just vibe. That's what my project's about. It's about finding people that have found those alternative methods, and showing people that people do have solutions, and it might not be medicine.
Yeah.
So it's been a cool journey, man.
No, I love it. I'm going to touch on something that you and I discussed before we started this. When it comes to like the mental health field, yeah, as you said, like it's not enough information about it. We really just started talking about it probably in the last, I don't know, when I really started seeing it, it's like maybe the last 6 years, you started seeing more and more spreading awareness, which is tremendous. And I love it. But, everyone is different. We all have different mental health challenges or diagnoses, and we all have different ways we heal. For you, during your story, you stumbled upon going to the gym, not because it was something I was like somebody told you to do it. You was just like, man, I feel like a fat ass. I'm not looking good. Let me just try this out. But then you realize not only physically you was changing, but emotionally on the inside, whatever stress that you was carrying was getting released. It was like, oh man, like the trauma that I experienced as a child, as a young adult, or even now currently, the pressure is getting released. As far as like, the way I'm hitting the gym, I'm not thinking about it as much, or I'm starting to understand what I went through. Because when you're working out, you have to be in the presence. There's no like, hey man, I'm going to do this and this and this. Like you have to be, every set that you rep, you have to be focused and locked in on. And you get a chance to, as I like to say, slow the world down. And when you slow the world down, you get the process. For me, during my struggle with depression, right? I was just like, man, I got to do something to break the pattern. Here I am, like eating like a fat ass, like drinking my heart out. And I was like, well, let me go to the gym, and even for that was like challenging for me because, I during this time, I was probably like 190-ish, 195, like not a fit 190, okay, like a dad bod with no kids 190. And I got this guy next to me who's like ripped, and he's like, that's all you can lift. And it was just like I had to learn how to like adjust my mindset and concentrate on what I can do. He didn't get like that like the first day. He'd been doing this for years. This is day one for me. So don't even compare yourself in that aspect, but be true to yourself. Like, and I was just, man, I got my little 25 pound and I just slowly just curled and just stayed locked in. And then I realized, man, this felt good. This beats me drinking my heart out. I feel better, not only like physically, but mentally. I feel good. I don't feel like I'm carrying the world on my back anymore. And then I took it to another step as far as taking a walk. Let me be one with nature. Let me see the sun. Here I am in my house and the lights is out and I'm watching Netflix, binge watching, and it's all dark. And let me actually embrace the sunlight, and doing that. And I love it. And I realized that was a moment in your life where you was like, I'm never going back. And you kept
absolutely.
You kept on
absolutely
pushing. For those who don't know, this is like, people like to use this term like a habit, but this is a lifestyle for you. And you realize like, this is part of my lifestyle. It's working out.
That's the thing. When you say you have this moment, you do at some point, I think, when you're healing, have this epiphany, we'll call it, where you're just like, I'm not going back there. And it's unbelievable how much just going for a walk can do for you. And I think what a lot of people don't realize, I didn't realize, is that, you know, and maybe it was like this for you as well. When I was drinking and doing all that stuff, I thought that was the easiest way for my life to go. And then, you know, you find this other thing and you're like, wait a minute, like that was the worst path, really. It felt good for a little bit, but it was a terrible come down every single time. And then you discover it's very important. You know, what me and you were trying to do. We're trying to reach people. We're trying to and that's the message ultimately, is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there are ways that you can feel good and happy and have a good life. And it's so hard to see that when you're in the darkness. And, you know, all of us that have been through that kind of thing, and everybody goes through it on some level. And this kind of stuff that we're talking about can benefit anybody, but ultimately, like, I want to shake people sometimes when I you know, because I have
Like
all
snap
the
out of it.
empathy in the world
Yeah.
for people. You know, I've been through terrible stuff myself, but I think one thing that I think about when I think about those years of my life is that I had this incredible amount of self-pity, and other people had pity for me. Oh, you know, my life is so hard and I can't go on and everything terrible happens to me. And frankly, that never did anything for me, feeling sorry for myself or having other people. So when I meet people that are depressed now, I just want to say, you got this, you can do this. But, you know, they're in a place that we were at one point, where it's hard to see that, you know.
Yeah, no.
That's what my hopes are with Mind Muscle Pro, is that we can show some people that they're not too broken to fix, and that there are solutions, and there are way better ways to live.
Yeah, that's why I believe storytelling is key. Because like for people that see us, they're like, oh man, they never went through it. But when you share your story, they're like, oh wow, it gives them hope. You know, like, man, I can do this. I had to learn how to hold myself accountable, right? Only way I was doing it was not only like writing sticky notes and reminders and putting things in my like phone as like, go to the gym once a week, right? Stop having these high expectations of I'm going to the gym every day. When you are in that mindset of trying to get out that depression and negativity or whatever you're facing, step one is just like having that reachable goal. And for me, it was like, I'm going to go to the gym once a week. I'm going to walk once a week. And if I can't do any of the two, I'm going to play some sort of sports. I'm going to be active because I need something to break that pattern, that funk. And also like moving boosts so much of like your mental. It's like, oh man, you don't worry about everything in the past as much. You're focused on the present. Like, you know, I love playing basketball. That was like my true therapy, man. Didn't matter if I had a good game or a bad game, just being out there and being active and having a team, the support team, right? That was something that nobody was really stressing out. And then until I sat down and I was like, man, I love playing basketball because it's a support thing. Whether you hit a shot or you miss a shot or you get a rebound, hey, don't worry about it, man. Hey, good shot, go ahead. You know, you have a team rooting for you and cheering you on. And it's
the camaraderie alone is
exactly. And even for someone who hesitate about like getting a personal trainer, right? Oh, I don't need one because this and that. We all need somebody to support us. I look at a personal trainer or coach, whatever you want to call them, as someone that's going to hold you accountable but support you at the same time, right? Whether they're going to tell you how to hold the bar right or not, that's those are small things, but they're going to really sit there and support you in a way where you probably didn't believe. Because while you're there and they're working out, they're not just going to talk about reps and all this. You're going to have some dialogue and conversations, and you never know what that person might, the insight that they may give you may change your life.
Absolutely. I mean, the people that I train,
Oh, wait,
over the
hold on,
years,
hold on.
I've found that that's
Let's tell
most
people
of
that
what they
you
do.
are a certified personal trainer.
Yeah, I'm actually
Yeah.
I'm doing yeah, I'm a certified personal trainer. I just recently, probably 6 months ago, actually got certified. I've been training people for years. For me, it was, I mean, I was proud of it, but you know, it's a piece of paper. Yeah, I've learned on my own. But a lot of people that I've trained, it's so much less about like teaching them the proper ways to work out. That's obviously gonna happen when you're training somebody, and more about the support and motivation. So it's not just like, you know, how do I do this? It's, you know, what has it done for you? And you do have that dialogue, and it's a beautiful thing too, because you get to, that's why I want to do it full time. I get to watch people grow, and I also get to watch people change mentally and with regard to, you know, how they feel about themselves right in front of me. And it's a process that I went through, and watching other people do it, I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. This is what I need to do always. So one thing I really want to touch on too is you talked about how we don't know what people are, you know, we assume things about people just naturally when we see them. Like you, I would have never, I mean, we worked together for several years, and you're this dude that was just charismatic and funny and just so nice to everybody. That's the biggest thing I could say about your character. And you're awesome all around, bro. I think you're
Thanks,
amazing,
man.
but you've always just been very kind to people. And it's weird because we never know what people are going through. I would have never in a million years guessed that this guy that I know from work that makes people laugh and is so good to others had so many struggles. And it is important to tell our stories, because literally walls come down. When I've been sitting on this project and talking about it for about a decade, and when you started telling your story, some of my walls came down, and I'm like, dude, this is a guy that everybody knows. Everybody likes this dude. He's a popular person, and he's exposing himself to help others. And it God, did it help me, man. It helped me, you know, get past that initial fear of like, oh God, people are going to think so differently of me. And that's it's unbelievably important, man. And that's what the biggest benefit for me personally has been from doing Mind Muscle Pro, is that people that I've known for years have messaged me or approached me at work and said, you know what, I went through this. I've struggled, and you know, thank you for sharing. And it's this cool circle of therapy, because that helps me heal, and it helps them heal to talk about it and just get it out and feel okay. And this weight is lifted, and it's just awesome. The more you talk about what's going on and your demons, the more you release them as well. So it's
Thanks,
I don't
man.
know, man.
No, thanks, man.
Thank you, man.
You know what? For me, like, yeah, people may not know, you know, what we was working at. Like, yeah, I was being a popular guy, and once I decided to, enough is enough. Like, I was just, you know, it was what you said earlier about being a man and keeping everything bottled up, and you don't want to show that you're weak. And I was struggling, like, on the inside of like, man, should I share my story? Because, you know, pretty much everybody knows me as the funny, cool guy, kind guy. And I was just like, I'm tired of wearing that mask, of trying to be strong. And this is bigger than me, you know? Like, there's somebody out there who's a son, a father, a daughter, like, you know, a mom that's struggling, that may need to hear it. And I took it upon myself to just be vulnerable with the world, you know? And I'm not going to lie, the text messages that I got once I started sharing my story, I was overwhelmed. For myself, I didn't realize how many people actually love me and cared about me, to be honest with you. And, you know, it just gave me more courage to be vulnerable, and share my story, my insight. And not only that, but just dive deep into this mental health field, because there are people who are struggling who may not want to go to therapy, may not want to be on meds. I'm not an advocate for like, hey, don't take meds or anything, but hey, let me give you some alternative routes, because everyone heals differently. I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I was trying to look for somebody that was talking about mental health that looked like me, that wasn't not even just looking like me, but that was relatable,
Mhm.
in a sense of the way I talk or anything. And I couldn't find any of that. Like, when I started sharing, I kept finding older white women who was, therapists and psychiatrists. And the guys I was finding was older as well, that was therapists and psychiatrists. And it wasn't relatable. You and I, we can talk about sports, we could talk about whatever type of analogies to break it down so people can digest, like the average person. And I was just like, I can't find it. I'm just going to be that person. And the support that, the love that my phone, that, the text message and the phone calls, like, I didn't know you was going through this. Why didn't you say something? And it was just like, I'm saying something now, so no one's family can get affected by that.
Right.
So yeah, no, thank you, man. I was
You cracked me up, by the way. I interviewed you for my show real early, and it was my first interview, and it was difficult for me. I thought we were on a timer on Zoom, first of all, and I was talking over you, and you helped me through it, and it was great, and I appreciated it so much. But you mentioned that, and this was right when I was getting started with like my Instagram and things of that nature. And you talked about that, how there weren't people that were relatable or that looked like you. And you're like, there's a lot of older white women. And shortly after that, like, I was on my Instagram page, and the people that were, I'd put hashtag mental health awareness and this and that to try to connect with people in that field. And all these friend requests were coming in, and it was all older white women. And I'm like, he's so right. And that's why, listen, man, this mental health needs men. It really does desperately. The podcast I'm doing later today, he's so excited. He's like, dude, I'm just women. And I'm going to absolutely tell him to contact you, because he'd love to have you and just sit down and talk with you, because he's got, and listen, I'm not knocking. I love that women are involved. Yeah. There's so many women that are struggling, and it's great. And there's so many that have helped me. I've watched people's stories, because Instagram has become, just social media in general, and I'm sure it has been for you too, has become so much more, real, and not just pictures of people, now that I'm exploring people that are active in mental health. So there's been so many women that I'm watching their stories, and I'm like, oh my God, it helps me. But that being said, there is a huge empty space and I've met a few guys that are into talking about mental health or sharing their journey, but very few, man. I mean, it needs to be talked about, because
of course,
there's a stigma to it. I mean, it's men are not supposed to have emotion or show emotion, and I don't care about that, man. I feel good talking about my feelings. I don't care who has a problem with it. It makes me strong, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's highly important for guys to step up and talk about it. When you look at the numbers, and males have a 4 times higher chances of dying by suicide than women, and it's just because we don't really know how to express ourselves, and we don't want to seem vulnerable or weak. And I always tell people, you can still be manly and vulnerable at the same time. Like, it's okay. It is okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I talk about my feelings all the time. I'm manly. Come tell me I'm not manly.
We about to wrap this up, but before we go, this is a question. If there's someone that's in a position that's struggling, that's not sure if they should work out or not, or even think about exercising, what would you tell them?
To really heal or make some change in your life, you absolutely have to get out of your comfort zone. I would say go to a gym and try it out. And listen, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You do something else. But, you know, you've talked about this many times. You talked about it earlier. Go for a walk. You know, if you're sick of being in that nightmare situation inside your head, get up and move. And if it doesn't work, you know, you'll try something else. But I'll say this as well about the gym environment. When I started going to the gym, I was very intimidated. There's a lot of people that are giant, you know, intimidating, like, "Grr." That community will absolutely embrace you. People help me so much. Some of the biggest, most intimidating guys in the gym have been saviors for me. You know, they've taught me things. They've showed me the ropes and become really good friends. And you know, when I first stepped in, again, it was I was embarrassed about how much I could. No one cares about that. Just come in. We'll show you the way. It's fun
Just
times.
show up. That's right. Just
Yeah,
show up.
that's
I
it.
love it.
That's it.
All right. So, all right, guys, this was an episode of the Just Believe podcast. One more thing before we end this conversation. Let everybody know where to find you at.
We have an Instagram, Mind Muscle Pro. It's just one word. We have a Facebook as well. Same Mind Muscle Pro. Our logo is a little. It's a brain with a muscle and a heart inside it, and that's it. Mindmusclepro.com. It's kind of a work in progress, the website, but we have that as well. And YouTube. Follow me on YouTube or subscribe or whatever. It's hard to get people to watch those videos, man. Our launch video got 11,000 views.
I'll put it in the description.
And the other one's got like 50. I'm like, come on. but yeah, it's yeah. Thank you so much, man.
No, anytime, man. Until then, guys, we'll see you next time. Peace.